What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the quartering, and I apologize for the mobile setup. I forgot my microphone, and I'm at a conference with Count Dankula and Sargon of Akkad in Chicago right now. We've got some speaking set up this weekend, so I'll do my best to keep you all informed on everything that's going on in the meantime. Now, there's some interesting news coming out of Square Enix. If you haven't been following it, everything that went on with Kaio Anime a few months back. And now apparently Square Enix is having a lot of people make send them bizarre communications and even threats. And it's led to a cancellation this weekend. But this is just the latest in a long string of disgruntled people sending crazy things to the video game maker. So Square Enix hit with more threats cancels game tournament. This is the most recent one. So this is reported by Kotaku.com. Starting this weekend, there are supposed to be events for the mecha arcade game Star Wing Paradox, at four cities across Japan. Those events have now been canceled due to weird messages. According to the official Square Enix statement, there have been several threats that have been made against Starwing Paradox's management team. Square Enix has reported the threats and is cooperating with authorities. As a precautionary measure, Starwing Paradox tournaments for this weekend and next weekend at Tiyoko, Yokohama, I'm not even going to try to pronounce these, released in Japanese arcades last November. Starwing Paradox features animation sequences done by Sunrise, the anime studio best known for Gundam. The threats are the latest in a string of events. And if we look at just a little while back, we had that a local ended up getting charged after threatening Square Enix with a Kyoto Animation repeat. 44-year-old Ken Kanaichi, I don't know, I'm not going to try it, has been arrested for allegedly sending threatening messages to Square Enix. Fuji News Networks reports that this message was sent via Square Enix inquiry page. Give me my money back for your bad game, read the message. Want me to do a repeat of Kaio Annie? That seems like, a really dumb thing to say, a really edgy, maybe it's just a bad joke, but nonetheless, coming from a 40-year-old person, that seems a little bit out of character, I would guess. He has, of course, admitted to sending the messages telling the authorities that I was mad after losing at a game. So I ended up sending the message. According to the press, the game was for smartphones. Authorities did not discover any materials at the suspect's house. Earlier this spring, another man was was arrested for threatening Square Enix staff. What is going on at Square Enix? Man arrested after threatening Square Enix staff. This is back in, April. A 25-year-old nursing care worker has been arrested after allegedly emailing Square Enix threatening to do very bad things. According to Live Door News, the man is accused of sending that email to Square Enix Tokyo office that read, "Hey staff, tomorrow I'm going to do something bad to you. Get ready for your punishment." In Japanese, the last part of the communication is, I'm not going to even pronounce that, which literally means go wash your neck. That expression has roots in the ritualistic samurai world. Interesting. It caused Square Enix to beef up security. The man was finally arrested on March 29th and has confessed, saying, "I spent over 200,000 yen, so about 2 grand, on the game, and I didn't get the in-game item I wanted, so I sent the email out of revenge." This raises questions about, obviously, the mobile gaming world. How many of the people who seem to have these wild outbursts are, in their mind, getting too deep or not getting what they want out of whatever mobile game that Square Enix is putting out? And interestingly enough, I guess I really haven't followed Square Enix that much. I think about them as a company that makes JRPGs, but apparently they also make what could be predatory mobile games. As website uh, Hamu Soku points out, it sounds like the money was spent on a virtual, uh, is like loot boxes. Gotcha items are video game equivalent of capsule toys called Gotcha Gotcha in Japan. It's funny that they're called gotchas. Last September, around 30 emails were sent to Square Enix with that word written in Japanese. Authorities are now wondering if they are connected to that. So people are getting so deep into these microtransactions that they are just losing their minds. If you look at just the mobile gaming market in and of itself, you kind of only think of like little kids that maybe get a little too um, wrapped up in a particular game, or maybe they're buying too many things in Fortnite. But you also have to remember that there are a lot of markets out there that really these things are completely unregulated. Not that they're regulated here in the United States, but the mobile market is a multi-billion-dollar industry for these video game producers, and there's just so many of them. And remember, maybe last month we talked about that presentation where it basically gives you the recipe for how to make a mobile game that does two things, that it basically lulls the customer into feeling like they're getting a good deal, and then exactly how to extract the most amount of money from them. Now, microtransactions in and of themselves aren't necessarily a bad thing. We talk about, even this week, we talked about Apex Legends having a $200 cosmetic axe in their game. And a lot of you, when I made that video, a lot of people pushed back and just kind of said, hey, who cares? The game's free to play and it's cosmetic, and you've got to leave it be. And I think ultimately that's where you have to land on these things. It's not unfair though, or it's not unreasonable for someone like myself, or even Angry Joe did a video on it last night, to point out that some of these things are just ridiculous. I think that when you can add it up and figure out that the only way to get this axe is to pay $200, you pretty much know exactly who EA is targeting, or Respawn Entertainment is targeting with these particular microtransactions. I mean, if the axe was $30 or $40, even that would probably be too much, in my opinion. That said, as somebody who plays World of Warcraft, certainly loot is a status symbol. And we've even seen articles written about, for example, Fortnite, how kids get made fun of for having kind of like standard skins and not having any cosmetics. And they talked about that in the presentation. There's FOMO, fear of missing out, but then there's also the social aspect of loot boxes in video games where uh, people will look down on you if you don't have the cool stuff. Now, I can't imagine anyone caring about that, but people do, especially kids who are impressionable, or it's maybe the type of people that value these things. I think cosmetics are fine, but we've also kind of backed off on criticizing when they get a little too crazy. You know, a lot of people said, hey, I don't care about microtransactions as long as they don't affect the gameplay, as long as they don't do this. I think ultimately that stance is reasonable, but we kind of let the games industry get a little out of control on these cosmetics. I mean, we saw with Call of Duty last year, I believe, charging $1 or something for a reticle for a red dot for 4 pixels. These things are ridiculous and meant to just drain money. They put out little things that figure out, hey, how much money do people have left in their accounts? And if the average is a few bucks, they figure out, hey, how can we get them to spend this money? Oh, let's put a couple small, meaningless things so people just buy it and get it done with. I guess it's harmless until you see stories like this where people are going crazy after spending a ton of money in the games. I mean, all these stories seem to be linked to people who are upset. Here, except with the situation of Starwing Paradox, we this just broke, so we don't know the motivation behind this, but it's an interesting thing to watch as people get deeper and deeper into debt, trying to have the coolest gear in these online games, mobile games, things like that. And it's something worth talking about. How much is too much, and is there ever enough? Square Enix probably needs to be a little more careful. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.